back with Rachel and Adam, another subject that we're going to dive into here. Wins and losses do not define us. This is definitely a subject that I hear and say a lot after wrestling matches. The thing that I always add to that, though, is how we come back. How we come back from those losses is what really defines us. And I'm going to have to go to the state tournament a few years ago. Tatum Shepard had lost it must have been semifinal on the backside, and absolutely did not want to compete anymore. Was really struggling with that. But we talked a lot about the responsibility of just being a wrestler. We don't want to get up at 6 a.m. and go for a run, but we do. We don't want to be in the weight room 4 days a week on top of practice, but that's what we do because we're wrestlers. And the idea of just getting back out and competing because that's what we do. And she went out and won that match, biggest smile on her face. And I know that if she had not thought about that and gone out and done that, that would have been a regret for the rest of her life. So how you come back definitely is the most important part of that whole wins and losses not defining you, but how you represent yourself and how you represent wrestling is how that will define you and how your legacy will be remembered. So, Rachel, do you have anything on this? I'm certain you probably do.
Yeah, something that comes to mind is in coaching. A really hard conversation that I have to have with kids a lot is, they're scared to get out there. They're scared to go lose. And something I always say, which is I'm like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen if you go out there on the mat? I'm like, well, I can get pinned. Has that happened before? I'm like, well, yeah. I'm like, did the sun rise the next day? Did your mom make you breakfast the next day? Was the world still turning? And they're always like, well, yeah. It's like, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Wrestling is, everybody gets into wrestling because they enjoy it. It's supposed to be fun. And when you think too much of those wins and losses, you can let wins and losses define you and really define yourself as a wrestler. You get to wrestle.
How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I think, you can even take it further that like wrestling doesn't define you, right? It's just a thing that you do. Whether you win, lose, wrestle, don't, it's the things that you do within wrestling that help shape you. When you talk about your work ethic, your attitude, how you treat people around you, even your beliefs and those things, at the end of the day, wrestling's just a part of you, right? But it's not who you are. So, and to what you're talking about too, like the losing doesn't define you, the winning doesn't define you either, right? So we still have to treat people with respect and integrity and everything, whether we win or lose. I always think back to Troy, Emily Spurgeon that wrestled for us, and she was a great wrestler, placed at state, won AAU, wrestled at Grandview, was a national qualifier there and everything, solid. But win or lose any match, and after most practices, she would come over to one of the coaches and say, all right, what do I need to work on? And some days it was pretty easy because you're like, well, you messed up here, your foot needs to be here, hand needs to be here, whatever. And some days it's like, I don't know, you were out there 7 seconds, Emily, I don't know what to tell you. But win or lose, she was always seeking feedback. And I think that's just a great example of the winning didn't define her. It was the quest to continually improve and the drive to just become the best that she could be. And then if we want to look to the biblical side of things, there are a couple verses that they're really similar in theme. One is 1 Corinthians 10:31. It says, so whether you eat or drink, whatever you do all to the glory of God. And then Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. So both of those are more eternally focused and not earthly focused. But both of them are referring to, you just got to give your best effort. You got to work to be the best you that you can become for whatever your motivation is. Obviously, if we're going the biblical approach, the motivation is we want to honor God with how we compete in our sportsmanship and all those things. But maybe if you're not religious, that relates to how do you represent your town? How do you represent your school, your family, your team, and those sorts of things. So it's always more than us for our why, and then it's more what we put into things, not what we get out of things in terms of the winning and losing that should shape what we're looking to do.
Yeah, I've used that same what Rachel had said earlier about did the sun come up? Do your parents still love you? I use that all the time too. I have gone a little deeper into that and said, well, the worst thing that could probably happen is you get dropped on your head and you break your neck and you die. But but those things don't happen often. So I have gone a little deeper, and that usually gets that exact reaction as they start laughing about it because it's almost ridiculous to think about that. And so it's okay to lose. That's something that if we're scared to lose too, we're too scared to try some new things. We're too scared to maybe pull the trigger on stuff. So sometimes it's harder to win when you're scared to lose, right? So all great examples. We'll be back again with another great topic. Thank you guys very much.